Hi folks, and welcome back. Today I'm going to be going over how to make particle explosions using Blender. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is open up a new Blender here, and I'm going to delete this cube because we don't need it. And we're going to go up to Add, and we're going to add a mesh, and it's going to be this icosphere. Now this guy, let's go put him over here. This fella is basically going to act as the emitter for our explosion. Um, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we want to do is go over to Materials, this Materials tab right here, and give it a new material. And what we want to do actually is scroll down, or it's up at the top here, and click this little icon that says Halo. What you'll notice is that our icosphere is turned into a bunch of little particles actually, and this is kind of what it looks like if we were to render it right now. It's kind of like that. So a couple of things we want to do actually is we're not going to be using the explosion modifier, but we are going to be using a particle system. So if you click on the modifiers tab right here, we're going to add a particle system. Now, in order to modify this, there's a particle system tab over here. We're going to select. It looks like a bunch of little stars. And now we're going to come up with a bunch of different options. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to want to do is under emission, this is actually going to be the amount of particles we're going to be using in our explosion. And I'm going to put that at around 2,000. These basic options right here, like lifetime for instance, this is how long each particle is going to last. Since we want a more realistic looking explosion, we don't want the particles to last too long. We kind of want them to die off really early. So I'm going to leave that around 7. This start and end actually is where our particle emission is going to, well, start and end frame wise. So if we were to look right now, if we were to look at let's go ahead and start this, we would see our explosion kind of looks like that. It's a little weak. It lasts for way too long, and it's not really explosion-y. So let's go ahead and change that around. We're going to have this go till about 20. And then down here, we can make the entire frame last for, let's say around 60, 70 frames, something like that. Now, to get the explosion look with our particle system, we have to scroll down to this physics section, and we're going to be using Newtonian physics. It's possible to make something that looks similar with this Boyd's, but we're sticking with Newtonian, and one of the things we want to do is select this checkbox that says multiply mass with size. I don't know if you can see there. And the next thing we want to do is this Brownian force. And actually, I'm going to start this right now so you can kind of see what's going on right now. And this Brownian motion is actually, we're going to put this all the way up to 15 and watch what happens. You see we get this nice explosion looking kind of deal going on there. Alright, so if we were to stop this about right there, we can kind of see what our explosion looks like right now, which is looking a little better, still extremely unrealistic. So let's change a few things about this. Let's go back into our Materials tab, and let's give our explosion kind of an orangey look. And we're going to go ahead and take this hardness and bring it all the way up to max, which is 127. And add, we're going to max that out as well. You can kind of start to see our explosion looking a little more explosion-y. So let's go over to the texture tab here, and we're going to give this a new texture. And one of the things I like to use here are these clouds here. But if you notice, if we were to just go with this right now, our explosion would look pink, which is not something we really want to do. So let's change this color to a really light blue here, or maybe even white. It's really a matter of preference. I like to use this lighter blue shade. And we're going to take this down to this color here for the halo. We're going to take this down to about 0.7, somewhere around there. And actually, I think I want to take this down even more. I'll probably bring it down to 0.26, something like that. And that's kind of starting to look a little more. See if we render that right now. That looks way better. Alright. So let's go back. Let's change a couple more things. If we go back to our Materials tab here, and we increase the size, the dimensions of our halo, let's bring this up to maybe about 1. You see we get this nice, very bright looking explosion. There we go. So this is basically our basic explosion here. Now there are a lot of options here you can mess with in this Particles tab. There's I mean, just tons of things. Say you wanted your explosion to look more upwards instead of just coming straight out in every direction like it is now. You can actually mess with these values here, this X, Y, and Z for your emitter object, and what happens is, say we bring the Z up a whole bunch, you'll actually notice your explosion goes upwards more, and you can actually change this while it's animating. So if it's at 0, you see it just kind of comes out in every direction. If I bring it way up, it'll kind of shoot, backwards, and then Y direction, and so forth, just so you can control the direction of your explosion. You can also adjust things with, let's see here, there's tons of things you can do. I also like to, under render here, there's a couple things I like to do here. For starters, if you look at the very first and last frame, we still have our object here, our emitter object, which is our icosphere, and I don't really like that showing, so I like to uncheck this emitter checkbox under render, and what that does is when I render it, let's say I were to render it here for instance, past the explosion, you won't see anything, and that's because we have disabled our emitter from being rendered in the shot. So basically the explosion will seem to appear out of nowhere and disappear into nothingness. I also like to increase this trail count just by 1, just to give it a little more fluff. So if we were to stop, say right here, that's starting to look a little better. So that's the basic explosion. Thanks for watching.